And you get a 0-day bug, and you get a 0-day bug, and you get a 0-day bug. All from Cisco. And CIOs think security is something to think about. And Microsoft introduces Radius again, but this time it's awesome. These stories and much more on today's episode of MSP Dispatch.
This episode is presented by OIT VoIP. Enhance your client's communication abilities with our VoIP solution, featuring integrated billing, on-demand training, and live US support. Collaborate seamlessly with Microsoft Teams integration and put your entire phone system in your pocket with Mobile X. Improve your offerings and increase profitability with reliable service for 1/10 of the average MSP acquisition cost. To learn more, visit oit.co or dial 844-CALL-OIT.
Good morning and welcome to the October 20th episode of MSP Dispatch, your source for news, community events, and commentary in the MSP channel. I'm Tony Francisco, joined by my amazing co-host, Mr. Jason Slagle. Jason, you are in a hotel, partying it up somewhere in a place that you can't talk about or you're going to get hacked or you are hacking someone. Talk to me. Where are you? How the heck are you doing?
I am at Wild West Hacking Fest in Deadwood, South Dakota. It's an interesting place here. They haven't found the internet yet, so it's recording this is it's been a little bumpy as we go through here because I keep losing access to the internet as we're recording. So we're hoping we can keep it long enough to get to the show.
We're going to do good, but my question to you is: are you actually losing access to the internet, or is your surrounding audience, because they're within a mile of you, saying, hey, listen, we want to see the MSP Dispatch live, so why don't we just kind of cut into his connection right now? You're literally in a central hack location in the world outside of China right now. Maybe they're interrupting, but overall, what are your thoughts on the event? How long have you been there? When do you leave?
The event's been great so far. Last night it kicked off, and then this morning I've been to a couple sessions. It goes through tomorrow. I drive back to Rapid City, South Dakota. That's the closest city with a real airport. It's about an hour from here. I drive back there tomorrow evening and then fly out Saturday morning. It's been good. If ever there was a way, if you wanted to eliminate the number of red teamers or hackers in the world, you could attack this event, because I'm pretty sure most of them are here.
Wow, I want to hear the stories. So when you come back, I'm hearing whispers of DNS exploitation and flaws, systemic flaws. You and I have, we'll call them opinions about DNS, and my summary opinion is DNS is such a nebulous term that has a different attributes respected differently, which is so against the way standards should work, and that it goes even further to when you move it inside the local DNS inside an organization, as you pointed out. What controls the inside local DNS?
Yeah, if you run Active Directory, then Active Directory controls those zones, not DNS. So you can change the DNS results by modifying Active Directory. Interesting stuff.
It's amazing. All of us want to hear about that. So, you know what we should talk about, though?
What?
The news. Let's get into it. Jumping straight into my first story from darkreading.com, a critical zero-day vulnerability known as CVE 2023-20198 has surfaced in Cisco's internet-facing iOS XE devices, and currently no patches or workarounds are available. The flaw, which scores a maximum of 10 on the CVSS scale, allows attackers to create accounts with a privilege level 15 access, essentially granting them complete control over the compromised device. This vulnerability is actively exploited by an identifier attacker using CVE 2021-1435, a command injection vulnerability to implant a Lua language code on affected systems. Cisco identified the issue while investigating unusual customer device behavior, suggesting it had begun as early as September 18th. The attacker's initial action was to create a local admin account from a suspicious IP address, and subsequent investigation revealed additional malicious activities, including the implementation of arbitrary commands. Cisco recommends immediate implementation of its security recommendations to counter this threat. So, Jason, you and I have talked about security policies, processes, and possibly even keeping firmware and operating systems up to date, maybe once or twice on this show privately. In the event of something that has no fix, and you have it as a part of your infrastructure in your organization, what do you do? What are your thoughts?
I've looked at this a bunch of times, and fortunately, many big businesses aren't going to use the HTTP server on Cisco's. They tend to not configure them that way. They only use the CLI, right? So that is not universally true, but anywhere that I've ever worked, I definitely did not use the web server on either the switches or the routers for configuration. Usually the CLI is a better way to do that. However, I am seeing very, very active exploitation of this out in the wild, and there must be a number of presumably small business customers that are doing this. I did poke some of my friends in the industry, and it is the case that like none of them are really running the HTTP web server for these things, so they're not that worried about it. However, if you are running iOS XE devices, and that's important, right? Because if you're super old, you're probably just iOS. And if you're the small business stuff, it doesn't run the same code base. If you are running those devices, you need to turn off the web server. It's 2 commands. They're listed in that Cisco document, and then you're safe.
So don't you run into a very interesting dichotomy there where you're saying, hey, if you're super small, stop using the web UI and go to the CLI, the command line interface, for those of you who don't understand Jason's binary speak, but command line. But if you're super small, maybe you don't have the skill sets to use command line. Consequently, it's affecting the smaller audience. However, in the larger audience, which has the skill sets in a lot of cases, they're using CLI. They don't even have it turned on, so it's not a big deal. So, are you? What do you suggest if you're a small organization that uses the web UI, that's using an older iOS, and you don't have CLI skills? What would you do?
I would issue the 2 commands to turn it off. These are routers and switches. How often do you actively manage them, right? Learn the 4 or 5 commands you need to do to change VLANs. In most of those smaller business networks, how often is that actually happening anyways, right? So the risk factor in turning this off is actually relatively low. Eventually, presumably, they'll release a workaround, and then you can turn back on your terrible web interface for your routers and switches. It's not a good interface, so telling people to turn it off, it's like it's saving them from themselves too.
Oh, that is brutal. So just to be clear, everyone, what Jason's suggesting is that because it's a set it and forget it scenario, you can almost have it as a headless device once you do exactly that, which eliminates a lot of the complications and the attack surface. In a previous story here on MSP Dispatch, we talked about a critical bug coming in where it replaced the alert file, or the wave file, the sound file in Outlook when it received an email. And one of the very first things I do is I turn off those alerts. So the question I had was, hey, is this vulnerable? And hunters got back and they said, Tony, you found a workaround around that exploit. I'm like, yes, because I'm eliminating the attack surface. Exactly what Jason just recommended. So that is I love that. So with that, what I'd like to do, Jason, is talk about cybersecurity. It's a pretty big thing, and your next story even implies that CIOs are starting to think maybe security is something to talk about, right?
Yeah. CIOs prioritize cybersecurity, brought to us by Ty Trumbull from Channel E2E. In a recent Gartner study, 80% of CIOs prioritize cybersecurity, with 45% collaborating with CXOs for joint leadership on digital projects. This emphasis on security is accompanied by a strong focus on areas like business intelligence and data analytics, cloud platforms, and AI machine learning. Additional priorities include application modernization, integration technologies, APIs, API architecture, and total experience solution. Notably, 40% of CIOs plan to reduce investments in legacy infrastructure and data centers, while 27% consider increases. The survey highlights the growing influence of generative AI in democratizing digital delivery, with 55% planning Gen AI adoption in the next 2 years, aligning with the adoption of low-code platforms by 64% of CIOs. Gartner provides a structured approach to digital delivery, classifying CIOs into 3 profiles. Operators retain control, Explorers collaborate with CXOs in projects, while franchisors share leadership, delivery, and governance with CXOs. Notably, the franchisor model emphasizing co-governance, particularly in cybersecurity and data privacy, stands out as a successful approach to achieving digital outcomes. Tony, that's a mouthful there, right? Like, do you think it's the case that CIOs are just realizing that they can tap into that nearly unlimited cybersecurity budget if they focus on cybersecurity?
Okay, so second law of thermodynamics, the law of entropy. It seems to apply here, where in most situations, a natural disorder will occur unless checked regularly. My question to you is, do you think we just haven't checked it in so long? There's just massive disorder across the board. Now they're like, well, let's get on this. Hey, wait, there's revenue over there. If we look at this, that's kind of a cool idea. I'm trying to figure this out. Are we too late to the game? Are we too early to the game? Are we just approaching it now in the right way that we should have originally? But then we're recognizing, whoa, this is a lot bigger. You're going from high school sport to college sport to professional, and maybe we're just getting out of like eighth grade. We're getting out of junior high. We're like going right to professional level stuff. Well, what are your thoughts? Are we just too far past this, or are we right on time, or are we way too soon?
I mean, I think at this point, with the rash of attacks we're seeing, that 20% that aren't prioritizing cybersecurity are probably going to be looking for new jobs at some point or another, right? We've reached the point where this can no longer go, and security is a thing, right? And I presume most of these companies have CISOs they're working with. Another, note on this article, it looks like we're starting to see potentially some people come back on premises. I think you guys maybe have covered that before, but with 27% considering increases to legacy infrastructure and data centers, right? Like, how is that? Is it people bringing stuff back on-prem? Is it gotten to the point that securing and running the cloud is too hard or too costly? So now we're starting to see some stuff come back. I don't know. It'd be really, really interesting to see how this goes over time.
Well, there's that saying, no one ever got fired by buying Cisco. I think is that the right saying? I think that's
it was a saying. I don't know if it's still true, but yes, it was true for many, many years. It was IBM before Cisco, for what it's worth.
So I've been saying this for a while. Most leadership and almost most people in organizations spend more time trying to keep their job than doing their job. And the question is, what are you actually trying to do? Are you pushing it just a little bit further than everyone's comfort level for the evolution of the company, for the betterment of the organization? Or are you trying to just keep your job, which is, of course, is very self-centered to you and may not have an aggregate betterment for the organization as a whole, or even ancillary benefit? So I believe, if we're saying the same thing, I believe what's happening is that this is a first real step up to the plate, saying, listen, we got to address this, and we need funding for it. But I think the counter to that is when you have the CISOs that are they're dangling the sword of Damocles over their head, saying, hey, if anything happens, you're personally financially responsible. I think that's the exact opposite of what we want to do. It's a terrifying situation. I'm really interested to see how this plays out. Yeah. The irony here that you're at a hacking event right now to be like, that's the irony. You're literally in a hotel at a huge hacking event, and we're sitting here talking about how hacking is so bad and how it's, we're trying to make the right steps in the right direction.
But it'd be really interesting to see. I may have to go to the source Gartner data if we can get access to it, because I'd be really curious to see what the org structure, a lot of those things look like. Yeah, so it's an interesting thing because if the CISO reports to the CIO, is it the case where the CISO is finally getting through to them, so spending's increasing, right? So I'd really like to see those reporting lines. But now you have an interesting story coming to us about something old that's new again. That won't be confusing at all.
Let's jump into it. Yes, something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. No, it is not a wedding. It is a story from Infoworld.com. Microsoft has introduced Radius, not the old Radius that everyone remembers, the new Radius, which is an open source cloud native application platform designed to facilitate collaboration among developers, IT teams, and platform engineers. This platform, unveiled by Microsoft Azure Incubation Systems, empowers the development and management of applications across public clouds and on-premise infrastructure. It supports private clouds, Microsoft Azure, and Amazon Web Services, with additional cloud providers to follow. Radius offers several benefits in its initial release, delivering a simple and consistent experience for deploying across diverse platforms with one application definition, standardizes and scales deployments, separates developer role, operator roles, and automates infrastructure provisioning using predefined templates. And finally, providing an app graph for clear insights to a project's components and connections. As cloud-native applications become more complex, managing them becomes more challenging. Radius overcomes Kubernetes limitations, offering support for dependencies, integration with CI/CD systems through GitHub Actions, and ensures cost-effective, secure operations. So Jason, Radius, it's back. Now, I want to point out to everyone out there, Radius is not the initial remote authentication dial-in user service. I got that right. Do you remember that? It's not for an in-house Radius server that was the cutting-edge application at the time for authentication for remote access. It is something new, borrowed, very old, and going into the blue cloud. You see what I did there? How I tied it all together? You see that? That was. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Radius?
So my question is, can I run Radius on Radius?
That's good. Can you run the old Radius on the new Radius?
Yeah. Oh. This is one that I'm definitely have to read more about, because I read this and immediately said, oh, they made Terraform, right? Which is essentially a very similar thing. It's kind of cool, right? Like the cross cloud stuff is not a totally solved problem, right? So having native support inside of one of the cloud vendors to do cross cloud, that's actually kind of cool. It's showing that there is actually a use case for cross cloud, because you'll see an outage that may impact all of Azure, but AWS and Google Cloud Platform are fine, right? So spreading out your mission critical services across multiple cloud providers is a good practice, and seeing a first class party now that supports all of those and supports provisioning across cloud platforms will make that a little bit easier. So the internal DevOps guy in me is like, yay, but then the internal DevOps guy is also like, but I do that with Terraform already.
Well, so that's a good question. So for all those who are not familiar with Terraform, Terraform is infrastructure as code, and there's a variety of other SDKs that you can build off of to make a Terraform. That's a lot of work. Terraform does a really good job at that, and you can, for lack of a better term, say, hey, listen, I need this type of network with this type of what's called a template of a network. You hit a button, boom, it spins up over there, and you could spin them up, and it's done in seconds. It's amazing. And you get look, he's like, yes. Now you're speaking.
Tying it back to the conference I'm at now, on the security side of things, it's actually really often used by people running labs, and they're testing things, right? So like there are Terraform playbooks that you can run that will spin up compromisable infrastructure with it limited down to your source IP and stuff like that. And it makes provisioning things like that really easy.
Well, testing, scalability, you have the elasticity of growth now. You could actually have sub-network components that can literally deploy on demand. And if you tie them to a table that's related to maybe a cached database of pricing based on areas, you can spin up different types of, let's say, front-end servers, back-end servers in the cheaper locations to process the data that's required. And Terraform and other SDK or infrastructure as code allows you to do that. So my final question to you, since we've just bored the heck out of everyone out there, or we've excited like half the people, my question to you, Jason, is Microsoft getting into Terraform? Like, is it getting into that SDK kind of infrastructure as code? And do you think it will play perfectly with Azure and the overarching AWS
I, I
land?
think I think Microsoft is making an alternative to Terraform that isn't Terraform. My best guess would be it will support enough resources at the other clouds, but it probably won't support everything, right? They're going to do some amount of work to try to keep you on their platform if they can, obviously. It's exciting though. It's always exciting to me when I see the 10 million pound gorillas in the industry adding support for their competitors, right? Like
But hold on. Let's pause for a second because you're saying what I'm implying, and I'm not saying it
yeah.
blatantly. Are they going to the eight? What do you call it? The 10 million pound gorilla. The ten
Yeah.
million pound gorilla. Are they going to play nicely with everyone? Not because they're going to play nicely with them, but it is the Trojan horse to get you to come
Yeah.
over.
Oh yeah.
Is that?
There are for sure market advantages in doing that. Like, oh, host your stuff here, and we can let you spin it up on other clouds too. It gets more people running the Azure DevOps stack, right, which increases knowledge. Having more and more people that can do that sort of thing is it makes it better for them because now the people with the knowledge will go, oh no, that new thing, we're going to deploy it on Azure because the number of people that understand the Azure side of it is higher.
Yes.
So on to notable mentions, I think, right, sir?
I think we do. You know what I'd like though is I'd like to know from the audience listening who's using an SDK such as Terraform, prepackaged SDA such as Terraform, or some infrastructure as code solution to deploy this. Did you even know this was out there? And check the show notes. We're going to have links to this stuff. I love talking about this stuff, but it's not something that's discussed often because it is with a subset of individuals. Irony, we're all using it. So I'd love the MSP input.
Yeah,
But
you
in the
can even
meantime,
use it to do, as the MSP, to bring it back to that, you can use it to do things like DNS, and you can use it to do things like standardizing some 365 settings. Like Terraform supports some of those settings. So there is an MSP play for this too.
I love that. Okay, let's get into the notables.
And in my first notable, attackers are hiding malware in browser updates, brought to us by Nate Nelson from Dark Reading. Cyber threat actors have adopted a cunning tactic by concealing malware within deceptive browser update notifications, exploiting legitimate yet vulnerable websites. Malicious JavaScript code is injected into these sites to generate seemingly genuine browser update prompts, camouflaging harmful payloads. This trend initially started with one threat actor, TA569, but has since been adapted by at least 4 different threat clusters. Each group follows a similar script, manipulating unprotected or misconfigured websites or any assets imported into them to run their malicious code alongside other site components. If a user clicks on the deceptive update, malware is downloaded to their device, potentially leading to further cyber attacks. To avoid falling victim to these scams, users are advised to be diligent and reduce and notice any unusual behavior on trusted websites or browsers. After ChatGPT disruption, Stack Overflow lays off 28% of staff, from Ron Armadio at Ars Technica. Stack Overflow, a popular developer support forum, faces challenges as generative AI like ChatGPT provides more precise and instant coding assistance. Stack Overflow CEO announced the layoff of 28% of the staff to boost profitability and innovate. Stack Overflow is developing Overflow AI as a direct response to AI chatbots, but the layoffs are part of a cost-cutting strategy. The irony is that the chatbots like ChatGPT rely on sites like Stack Overflow for their data, raising questions about web resource sustainability. OpenAI is developing web crawler controls for ChatGPT to let sites opt out of scraping, while Stack Overflow is exploring data access payment from AI firms to ensure sustainability. The CEO argues that platforms like Stack Overflow are crucial for chatbot development.
And jumping straight into my notable mention from bleepingcomputer.com, a malicious Google search campaign has been discovered targeting users seeking to download Notepad++, a popular text editor. This campaign, spotted by Malwarebytes, has been active for months, cleverly avoiding detection. Threat actors are increasingly using Google Ads for malvertising, that's malicious advertising, directing users to fake software sites distributing software. Although the final payload is unknown, it's likely to be a Cobalt strike, often a precursor to severe ransomware attacks. The campaign promotes misleading URLs in Google search ads, relying on users to click. Victims are redirected to a decoy site with legitimate targets taken to a fake Notepad++ site, potentially infecting them with Cobalt Strike. Users are advised to avoid promoted Google search results and verify the official domain of the software to prevent downloading malware unknowingly. Jumping into my second notable mention from TechCrunch.com. X, formerly known as Twitter, has initiated an experimental program charging new unverified users a $1 annual fee to engage with posts in select markets, like New Zealand and the Philippines. Existing users are unaffected. Paying users can post content like repost, reply, bookmark, and past quotes. New free users will have read-only access. X claims this program isn't driven by profit, but aims to reduce spam and platform manipulation. The company will share the program's effectiveness in combating spam.
For the qualifications for ranking these things, the things I'm going to test them on are price, quality, the features that are available with the models, with the interfaces rather, the moderation rules, so how much can you request from these things without being shut down, if there's any sort of free usage, and also kind of what we talked about at the MMN meetings was kind of like the philosophy or the foresight behind these companies. So what's going into making these technologies and what does that mean for where they will be in 6 months, like we've already talked about. So with Adobe, first up, it is pretty expensive. You have to have an Adobe subscription for something like at least Photoshop to use it, which is starting at $35 a month. But you do have unlimited generations, and you can use the same Firefly platform within the Photoshop generative AI tools. All right, so one extra feature that I did not know we were going to be getting on this demo is that Adobe's just rolled out a new model, Firefly Image 2 Beta, which is available for me to try. So we're just going to give it a try. While it's generating some things, I will want to point out is that it has a lot of built-in prompts modifiers. So like the style of art that you're looking for, the visual intensity, the strength of the style. You can choose not only, those kind of modifiers, but you can do color and tone, lighting, composition. In advanced settings, let you do negative prompts. You can also, I should note right from the top, do landscape, portrait, square, or widescreen. So that's pretty nice. Let's take a look at some of our images. We do have an alien. It looks like they're all kind of in an artsy style. Not a one of them has a Pokeball, so that might be a hard ask of an AI. But overall the images look pretty good. I tried it once more with art, but I want to see what it can do if it's trying to emulate a photorealistic style. Yeah, it still leaves a lot to be desired. It's kind of weird to me. I know that Adobe has its own standalone model that is trained from its own stock footage, but the quality of the images is not amazing to me. And that's something I'm going to be coming back to along with all the other stuff is kind of at the end of the day, what are we getting here? Is any of this worth looking at? No, none of this is funny to me. All right, let's also jump over to Photoshop so we can get an idea of what you can do with Firefly within these tools. So what you can do right off the bat, just do a select all. It's going to give you a little pop-up that you can't see on my window, but it gives you a little bar where you can enter a prompt. So we can just say something like outer space. And then once you get your generation, you get 3 different options. Let's go with this one with the planet. And then additionally, what you can do is you can take your lasso tool and so we could come right here, make a little blob, and that's where we're going to generate something new. Let's say an alien. Whoa, that is freaky. That is for real an alien though. Let's go with this one, and then let's get our tool out again, and we'll put another blob right here. We'll say a cat. And then let's do the ultimate test here to see if any of these AI know what a Pokeball is. I don't think they do, but let's try it anyway. No, not even close. So it'll be fun to see if any of these image generators know what a Pokeball is. All right, let's jump over to our tier list. Let's give a ranking to this one. Okay, so for Adobe Firefly, I'm putting that on the A tier for a couple of reasons. I do think price-wise it's pretty prohibitive if you're just looking for an image generating tool, but the quality of the images is pretty good. The fact that it's integrated into Photoshop is pretty amazing. A lot of tools use in-painting, out-painting, stuff like that, similar techniques, but the power of Photoshop is hard to understate with the addition of an AI generative tool in there. So I do think Firefly is pretty standout. And that's why I'm gonna put it up pretty high, but not the highest because of the cost, as well as the moderation is pretty bad. That's the one thing I didn't touch on, is that if you put in a prompt that it doesn't like, even if it's not something that's, profane, nudity, that kind of thing, it'll just shut you down. and you don't have any way to appeal. I think that's problematic. I think we'll see some other examples of that are better.
There are plenty of amazing upcoming events taking place across this community. Let's see what's happening this week. October 24th to 26th, 7-Figure MSP Live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. October 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern, the Huntress Product Lab. October 24th at 3 p.m. Eastern, How is Cybersecurity Different from Managed IT? Presented by Finn. And coming up from the MSP Media Network, October 20th at 11 a.m. Eastern, MSP Community Live Episode 16. October 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern, Partner First, MSP Help Desk Phishing, Lessons Learned from the MGM Attack. October 25th at 10 a.m. Eastern, AI Roundup Episode 33. October 27th at 11 a.m. Eastern, MSP Community Live Episode 17. And on October 27th at noon Eastern, Bits and Books Episode 3, Leaders Eat Last.
Hi, I'm Aaron, and I'm a jobaholic. We all have something in common. We all have a worst job story. Each episode, I'll welcome one guest to share their most insane worst job story. And in return, I'll share one of mine. Join me the first Friday of every month for new episodes of 38 at 38.
So, how'd you like today's show? If you like it, please hit that thumbs up button. If you did not like it, hit it 3 times, whatever an odd number is, so it still shows that you liked it, but no one else will know except you. If you want to hear more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube or your favorite podcatcher. Did you know that we have a Discord where we post our stories all week long? You can even propose your own stories and even vote on which stories we will cover. As not my friend, but he is kind of my friend, but definitely Ray's friend and probably everyone's friend, Rich Banky says, make sure you tell a friend about us. Also, be sure to follow us on social media at MSP Media TV. Do you have any questions? Email us at news@mspmedia.tv for answers on the next episode. Or just call us. Leave a voicemail at 833-MSP-Network. Jason, we have had another amazing show, specifically because you're in some creepy hotel in a dark room where you're trying not to get hacked by the other hackers. You're taking a break from hacking them while you're simultaneously telling the community, hey, listen, we all got to be safe. There's a lot of creepy people out here hacking a lot of stuff. And I cannot appreciate your time enough. Thank you so much. Why don't you go ahead and wrap this up? Tell us about when the next time we're going to see you, when you're going to update us, and land the plane. Hit it, Jason.
Yeah, you'll see me next week. I think I'm also co-hosting next week too, because I think Ray's still out. Hoping to have a good time here. For the record, the keynote was titled something along the lines of "We're Scared Too" for the security people. So that gives you an idea of the current state of security, cybersecurity in the industry. And yeah, I think I'll talk to you next week.
Oh, it makes me feel like I talk about all my neurotic behavior because of the show and everything, the education, but you're literally at a group that I should be at personally, or ancillary to the group, sharing my therapist, which that's a really good business opportunity. Anyway, great show, safe travels. Everyone out there, please be safe.
See ya.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.
What do you do? What are your thoughts?
He's frozen with fear.
That was could not be. Here's
That
the cool
was
part.
amazing.
But it actually.
Oh,
You get a 0-day. You get a 0-day. Everybody gets a 0-day.
oh yeah, I got 2 notables left and we're good, right?